open conversations. Today we'll discuss the subject of Hindu Holocaust. Broadly, we'll also go to the whole area of ideology, but we'll do it from a different counterfactual analysis. In a separate video, I have discussed about Hindu Holocaust. Today we'll look at it from a counterfactual standpoint. The standpoint being, if Hindu Holocaust would have been accepted as a historical fact and known the world over, exactly like the Jewish Holocaust, say we were on the point if Hindu Holocaust, like the Jewish Holocaust, was known by 1947, would the events of Hindu genocide in Kashmir or Bangladesh or Pakistan, which have happened after 1947, could they have been averted or minimized? Would the world have reacted differently? Could these incidents of genocide be stopped or minimized or controlled, or the victims be given better justice after the incident occurred? It's very important to go for this counterfactual analysis because it tells you the cost of not having Hindu Holocaust being recognized over the world, and the returns you get when true history is known, when your ideology is accepted. And for those who say investment in ideology is a dead investment, this counterfactual analysis brings out how necessary it is to invest in an ideology and how returns are very high on investment in ideology well done from a geopolitical standpoint and also from a humanitarian standpoint and of course from a truth standpoint. So we'll today look at a counterfactual analysis of the Hindu Holocaust, taking a few examples, a few different vantage points coming to the center of our discussion. The fact is, Hindu Holocaust is not accepted as a historical fact, when in fact this is the largest and the longest ongoing Holocaust, and it's going on even today. It is a 1,000-year-old Hindu Holocaust where no one knows the count, but not less than 1 billion people would have been killed. There have been instances where invaders, Islamic fanatics, they created pyramids of skulls. And no one knows the count of how many people would have to be killed to create a pyramid of skulls. The Jewish Holocaust appears like a small Holocaust in comparison with this mega Holocaust, the Hindu Holocaust. So this is the fact that the historical fact is the Hindu Holocaust is a 1,000-year-old Holocaust. More than 1 billion people have been killed. There is no count of how much property would have been destroyed, how much suffering would have been inflicted on the Hindus. And the fact that such an historical, critical, and tragic event is not understood as such. It is good to see some awakening coming up, and I heard of Donald Trump promising to create a Hindu Holocaust memorial. And this Hindu Holocaust, the acceptance of it and the full appreciation and assimilation of it, both by Hindus and by rest of the world, not only is historically relevant, humanitarian-wise relevant, but it also is the foundation for resurgence of the Hindu civilization. However, none of it as yet has really fully taken off. That is the reality point of it. Now let us take the counterfactual point. Take a counterfactual standpoint. What if the Hindu Holocaust was known 5 centuries back? What would have happened thereafter? Would Hindus have got together? Would they have learned their lessons? Would they have prepared better to prevent another Holocaust? Would the world have been more sympathetic to Hindu suffering? Could Hindu suffering have been lessened if this was known 500 years back? Similarly, what would have happened if this was known and appreciated the world over 100 years back? A third possibility, what if this was established in 1947 when India became free? And what if it is established today? And what if it is established 100 years later? This counterfactual analysis is very necessary to make us realize the cost of not establishing the truth of Hindu Holocaust and the returns that are likely if those who have resources invest resources in establishing the fact of Hindu Holocaust. So this counterfactual analysis has the potential to change the factuality of the world. Let us start with one distant counterfactual analysis, point of analysis of what would have happened if Hindu Holocaust was established in the world and more strongly in the Indian subcontinent. Take the example of the Sri Lankan leader Prabhakaran, the chief of LTTE. He grew up as a Hindu who was persecuted by the majority community of his country, and he created a organization asking for a homeland for Tamils in Sri Lanka. Now, go for a counterfactual analysis. What if Prabhakaran grew up learning about Hindu Holocaust? He would have probably tried to base his thinking on the ideology of a Hindu Ilam and not a Tamil Ilam. It's quite a possibility. Take the second part of the story. How would have been the response of the Hindu society in India if the persecution of Tamils in Sri Lanka was seen as persecution of Hindus and continuation of the Hindu Holocaust? Obviously, the response would have been different. The response both of Tamils in Sri Lanka and Hindus in India to Tamils in Sri Lanka would have been completely different. And this is where the cost of not establishing, not investing in the truth of Hindu Holocaust makes itself very clear. Extend this concept deeper. If the concept of Hindu Rashtra and Hindu Holocaust was, and the wide definition of the word Hindu was established in the Indian subcontinent, the Sri Lankan Buddhists would not have seen the Tamil Hindus as the other. They would have seen both of them as parts of a wider Hindu confederation. But because this was not done for centuries, you have a gulf between Buddhists and Hindus in Sri Lanka, when in fact both of them are Hindus in one. From my standpoint, Buddhism is a part of Hinduism. What we see here is a comprehensive ideology of Hinduism, Hindu Rashtra, Hindu Holocaust being absent. The parochial, small, narrow, reductionist ideologies, they take root. And these small parochial ideologies create small groups in one versus the other. And there are million small battles in a small country. And much of it is avoidable. Much of this human suffering is avoidable if you have a comprehensive ideology which can assimilate diverse groups. If you look at it from one point of view, from point of view of dedication and the ability to go on with a armed struggle and the ability to inspire men, from that standpoint, Prabhakaran was an ideal leader if he was a leader for a Hindu Rashtra. But he was not an ideal when it came to his use of drug money, or when it came to his use of terror as a weapon for his goals, or violence as the only way out without any possibility of a negotiated settlement. But from one standpoint, he was a, if you take some of his good qualities and put it into a leader in the Indian subcontinent, fighting for Hindu Rashtra, it almost like very near to an ideal leader who did not have the right ideology and therefore became equally dangerous being on the other side. So we see how the absence of an ideology puts a very potential leader on the other side, on the wrong path, occasionally, not always. And it also brings out that if we institute today the historical fact of Hindu Holocaust, the ideology of a wider Hindu civilization, in a decade or two, results will come. After analyzing in a counterfactual way the case of LTT, let us go to some more points, more counterfactual analysis. Take the group of Yazidis who are descendants of Hindus. Their practices, many of their worship practices are still Hindus. If the idea of a Hindu Holocaust and the cultural Hindu Rashtra was really instituted in India, we would not be so indifferent to the suffering of Yazidis. We would have got in touch with them. We would have given them moral support. military support, and they would have been the ideological flag bearers of Hinduism in the Middle East. Take another example of Iran. It's a very interesting example where people are fed up with the Islamic fanaticism and corruption of the mullahs, and they want to return to a pre-Islamic Iran, but there is nobody to ideologically and politically help their people and intellectuals of Iran to talk about and re-establish a pre-Islamic Iran. And the pre-Islamic Iran essentially is a Zoroastrian Vedic Iran. And because we are failing in the ideological propagation of Hindu Rashtra and Hinduism and Hindu Holocaust, we are not able to really incubate and nurture this organic movement in Iran to move towards a pre-Islamic Zoroastrian Vedic civilization of Iran. Iran and Sri Lanka both are examples where we are paying a very high cost of not investing enough in ideology of Hinduism. And people of both these countries also are suffering because these ideologies are not existing there. It is suffering for both. In fact, it's suffering for a large part of humanity. The same is true for Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, where Hindus cannot be protected because Hindu Holocaust is not being recognized, and because Hindu Rashtra is not being ideologically fought off there, there is no countering to the fanatic discourse which is going on in those countries. And this eventually has turned all the three countries into potential terror hubs for the world, and everyone is worried what will come out of this. So this brings us to the point that ideology continues to be a central weapon of geopolitics, and good ideology is necessary for a good world, and return on ideology is very high, far more than the return on military spending that we do. And this leads us to indicative quantification of cost of ideology and return on ideology. If we go into this counterfactual analysis, if we had propagated well, instituted well, the ideology of Hinduism, Hindu Holocaust, Hindu Rashtra, Yazidis, how much less they would have suffered, how much support they would have got, and how much we would have got a foothold there. How much people of Iran would have been benefited, how much the rest of the world would have benefited, how much India would have benefited. Same for Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. So there is a cost of not investing in ideology, and there is a return of investing on ideology. Can it go negative? If the ideology is Abrahamical in nature, like communism, it can go negative. But if it's a non-Abrahamical ideology like Hinduism, the probability of returns being negative is very less. So this counterfactual analysis brings out to us the necessity of investing in the ideology of Hinduism, historical fact of Hindu Holocaust, and the geopolitical idea of Hindu Rashtra. And it also tells us the cost of not doing it. So with this cost and return on ideology being made clear by a counterfactual analysis, it opens up this whole door of counterfactual geopolitical analysis from standpoint of Hinduism. And that will open up strategies and creative ideas to address this critical need for the good of everyone. Thank you.